And so now it is my honor to introduce an amazing panel. We're calling them Power Players, and we're going to be talking about the relevance of the news media and also about the influence and the role that social media is increasingly playing in the news media and in world affairs that all of us cover in our daily lives. And let me just introduce them from on my right to your left is Matt Winkler. He is editor-in-chief of Bloomberg News, which is the global news service he helped to create, along with Michael Bloomberg in 1990. Matt oversees a worldwide news organization of, I believe it's 2,300 journalists in 146 bureaus in 72 countries? You're in 72 countries, 146 bureaus. Matt previously reported for the Wall Street Journal. I'm also happy to tell you that he just recently has joined the board of the International Women's Media Foundation. Matt, welcome. Seated next to Matt is Howard Buffett. He is the noted philanthropist. He's president of the Howard G. Buffett Foundation. Howard has traveled to over 95 countries, and you can update me if that's low.
Almost 100.
Almost to 100. Countries in the process of documenting biodiversity in order to meet population needs. And that's a very rough translation of what he does, and we're going to hear more from him in a moment about that. But he has authored more than half a dozen books on conservation, wildlife, and the human condition. He's written articles and opinion pieces for the Wall Street Journal and for the Washington Post. His foundation has supported work done by the IWMF in several African countries. Howard G. Buffett, welcome. And next, the gentleman I introduced you to a moment ago, Alberto Ibargüen, the president and CEO of the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, a foundation that also supports the work that the IWMF does. He is the former publisher of the Miami Herald and also of Nuevo Herald in Miami, Florida. He's chairman of the board of the World Wide Web Foundation. And so, Alberto Ibargüen, thank you very much for being here.
Very much.
You know, it's been noted that this is a conference of women, and we have a panel of all men. And I just want to say, not only were they invited because they are as I said, power players, people of enormous influence in the worlds that they occupy, but also they all represent organizations that have been very supportive of the work that we at the International Women's Media Foundation do in their own ways, and we're going to be talking more about that over the next couple of hours. I want to start, gentlemen, with you, Howard Buffett, because you come not from a news background. You're a philanthropist. You're interested in agriculture. You're interested in sustainability, and yet to you, the news media is important. Why?
Well, Judy, first I'm going to lower everyone's expectations because I don't come from a background in the media. I want you to know that my wife calls me high maintenance and low tech. Until a few months ago, I didn't even send my own emails, so that's how bad I don't do Facebook. I don't know what a blog is, any of that stuff. So you'll have to forgive me when I don't keep up with the other two gentlemen up here, but I'll do the best I can. But you know, it's critical to what we do. I mean, we have kind of four major areas we work in: agricultural development, water, and we do a lot of work in conflict areas or post-conflict areas with the refugees and IDPs. You know, all of those areas have different reasons why media is important. But, you know, and I'm going to use this example because the First Lady is here from the Swahili. You know, I was in Algeria last year, and I went into these refugee camps, and I could not believe that I had not been aware of 25 years of a struggle that is an amazing story. And I came back and I started doing a little digging and a little, you know, trying to learn. And the amount of attention that's been paid to it over that period of time has been extremely minimal. And I think about that, and I think, you know, where we work in conflict and post-conflict areas, the only hope for change, the only way to put pressure on the political leadership, if you can call it that, is through the media. And there is nothing, I mean, truthfully, free media and democracy go hand in hand. and you cannot have democracy without free media. And so anything that we put our efforts into is critical. We took on something last year with NDI and the Commission on Presidential Debates, which I think some people would almost laugh at us for doing, and honestly, maybe not in this room, but we tried to organize presidential debates in Burundi last year. And we had, I will call them one failure after another, except each failure turned into a success. And it was amazing. And it was only because of the commitment of the local journalists that we could even gain anything out of this experience. And the truth is, I think that we nudged democracy a little bit. But it is really, and this is why this organization is so important to us, because it's one of those rare groups that really can get in and support the local people and the local journalists, and that's a key thing to having success.
Alberto, as someone who has been involved with the media, it's been your life, your career. What have you seen that either supports or doesn't what Howard is talking about? I mean, you have obviously had close connections with Latin America, with Central America. What have you seen that supports the idea that media is a critical part of development and change and growth in so many countries around the world?
Well, most of our work at the foundation is actually in the United States, not overseas. But I think your statement that information is an absolutely core requirement for democracy, I think fits no matter where you are. I mean, it's kind of a rule. And one of the things that we couldn't help but notice 5 years ago at Knight Foundation is that pretty much for the first time in the history of the Republic, the way we get information became untethered from the structure of the democracy. If you think about it, go back to the time of the Revolution and the pamphleteers, and so the audience the audience that needed to act was being reached by local media. And fast forward to the time when you have a couple of congressional districts or a mayoral district that are roughly the same as the reach of a newspaper circulation or a local television signal or a local radio signal. And you have, I think, an appropriately informed, with a variety of voices, although it could have been more diverse, you have an appropriately informed electorate able then to make decisions in its own interest. Suddenly, information is no longer bound to geography. And it's not just the cableization of television, if you will, but of course Internet. When suddenly more Americans now, according to Pew, are getting their news from Internet, and the ones that are and the leading source of news is still television, which is in many ways less and less local. It's more and more national. If you look at the CNN, Bloomberg, they're really not local shows. And so you end up with a real crisis of local information at the core of the democracy. And you find time and time again that where you used to have news being produced about what was going on at City Hall or at the local Board of Education, there's simply less of that being produced. Although, as our mutual friend Vartan Gregorian loves to hold a cell phone that I'm not really sure. I think he prints out his emails too, but I don't tell him I said that.
This is the head of the Carnegie Corporation of New York.
And he says with his wonderful accent, "My dear Alberto, more information in BlackBerry than Library of Alexandria," and it's absolutely true, but I don't know what's happening at City Hall. And I don't know who's doing it at City Hall, because the structures that used to cover that don't exist anymore. So we found we could either decide we were going to sit around and mourn the loss of journalism or the loss of newspapers, Or we could say, you know what, that's not the point, which is what we did say, and say, all right, so what you do is you go to the end and you say, what are the information needs of a community in a democracy? Where are we now, and how do you get from where we are now to where we're going to go? Inevitably, the answers are digital platforms of one sort or another, and so what we determined to do was to fund experiments in how to deliver information locally to democracies, and how to find partners who are willing to figure it out. We have to. It's not that you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you really do need to think about this in a different way.